sanctions of Russia are harming pretty much every economy that is taking part in said sanctions, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to wager that most people watching this show are participating from some sort of Western economy that is involved in these types of sanctions. And we are the ones who are harmed by that, right? And so as we talk about what the news is, what the politicians are doing, it is relevant what we, the people, do in response.
That's right. So let's talk about what Vladimir Putin just said last night in a speech, and it's incredibly relevant. You know, when Russian President Vladimir Putin often speaks, he often says exactly what he means. He doesn't often mince words. He kind of comes out and tells you exactly what he's thinking. He tells you exactly what his plan is, and then when people don't believe him, like they're shocked. They're like, "Wait a second, didn't he actually say that a few weeks ago? He actually said what he meant." So he came forward with this and said that there's trouble for the West. Big trouble if you live in one of these Western economies right now. Here is what he said on Western hegemony. Listen.
Они должны были бы понять, что уже проиграли с самого начала нашей специальной военной операции, потому что ее начало означает и начало кардинального слома миропорядка по-американски. Это начало перехода от либерально-глобалистского американского эгоцентризма к действительно многополярному миру. Миру, основанному не на придуманных кем-то для себя эгоистических правилах, за которыми нет ничего, кроме как стремления к гегемонии. Не на лицемерных двойных стандартах, а на международном праве, на подлинном суверенитете народов и цивилизаций, на их воле жить своей исторической судьбой, своими ценностями и традициями, и выстраивать сотрудничество на основе демократии, справедливости и равноправия. И надо понимать, что этот процесс остановить уже невозможно.
This process can't be stopped. And he says it right there that, look, Western powers should be concerned, right? That they knew ahead of time that this was, this was going to be a disaster, and they continued pushing this plan, and it's led to absolute economic disaster for the West.
He speaks about a multipolarity of government, right? And we have seen that happen, whereas the West is shocked, I say, that certain countries are not willing to go along with their plan on sanctioning Russia. He says in this speech, I see that the West is, participating in these sanctions that are hurting them, which we told you would happen in February, March when they began. But there are plenty of countries that are not, right? That will thrive as a result of not having this pain point. Syria, India, China, and these are the poles that he's talking about, multipolarity. And that's a scary concept to think about, just exactly how clearly cut the globe will be sectioned.
And so he says, I mean, these Western oligarchs have been telling us exactly what they intend to do, right? And Putin's kind of making fun of them in that part of this speech. He says, we're going to take away your land, right? World Economic Forum, we're going to take away your land. We're going to eliminate fossil fuels, creating an energy crisis, which is what they did. We're going to create a digital currency so we can track every transaction you make. We want to get away from paper currency, coins, etc. We want to track everything in a centralized bank. That's what the World Health Organization has said to us, right? That in the next pandemic, whenever that is, and President Biden just the other day says we need to prepare for the next pandemic. So they're already planning it. And then the news over the past 24 hours that we don't have a handle on monkeypox was on the front page of the New York Times. Okay, so it's coming. Whenever the next pandemic will come, the World Health Organization has told us they will take control of our currency. They will consolidate it under one globalist central bank structure. And so there won't be a US dollar to worry about. There won't be a euro to worry about. There'll be a central currency that they'll all be able to track. And the White House told us the pain that you're feeling right now is all part of the plan towards the liberal world order. This is all part of the plan. Listen.
Well, what do you say to those families who say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years. This is just not sustainable.
This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
Yeah, so this is part of the plan. This is, again,
these are our values. Whether you didn't know that, oh, it is. It's your value.
It's your pain. This pain, guys, this is this shared, this shared pain that we all have, right? This is, you all need to suffer because this is all part of this liberal world order. And it's not just the White House. I mean, it is the World Economic Forum. It is the European Union. It is Canada. It is all consolidating around this idea and this plan. And if you think it's a conspiracy theory, you're nuts, actually. You're the crazy one, you know. The World Economic Forum actually said as much. This is what the World Economic Forum said, that the pain is worth it. Listen.
We need to accept that there will be some pain in the process. The pace that we need will open up for missteps. It will open up for shortages on energy. It will create inflationary pressures, and maybe we need to start talking about that pain is actually worth it.
It's
You know,
worth it. I
I'd
love
be
the
okay
smile.
with that, right? Like, I do understand that the world is at an inflection point and that we will need to sort of change our way of living eventually, not dependent on single-use items and that kind of thing. I'm fine with some kind of like painful change, but not if it's only small people, small business, individuals experiences these pains, but big business is doing fine.
Well,
It's not a
hold on,
collective
hold on.
decision,
Let's
right?
let's unpack this a little bit. I get what you're saying, and I think you know we go to great lengths in this family to not use like the single-use plastics and all of that, right? We're trying to be aware of the environment. We go scuba diving or whatever, and you see like bottles floating there, destroying reefs. Like it's under like that's the stuff you don't want, right? You don't want to be
Sure, right.
You don't want to see it like you see in sub-Saharan Africa, communities that are absolutely destroyed. They're literally sitting in filth because of the oil companies that have destroyed their way of living. So they're sitting there breathing in all these toxic chemicals because these oil companies run the show. I get it. But so how do you, like, what pain are you prepared to experience because some government, are you saying that you're okay with it if a government tells you that
No,
here's what
well,
we have to do?
that's the thing, right? If there is some kind of like the mindset during the coronavirus pandemic was we all need to stay home. Like we bought into this idea, right, that there would be pain for all of us and it was for a purpose.
Like a war, like World War II.
Right.
Right. We're going to sugar ration.
What ended up happening was it was only painful for individuals and small businesses and not for big corporations. It ended up being pretty great for
Pretty
most
profitable.
corporations, right? And so that is an important lesson, especially for anyone who is like-minded, who during the pandemic thought it was a selfless thing to do, to stay home and, in your house nonstop for months on end. Like, we're doing the right thing. We bought into this collective mindset. And then in the end, what did we do it for? When small businesses and individuals were harmed,
Right.
children were harmed. We harmed children for no reason, right? And then big businesses did just fine.
Yeah, small businesses, hundreds of, David, what was the stat? Like how many small businesses went out of business because of the pandemic? And
by the end, it was up around 200,000
in the U.S.
small
Just
businesses.
Yeah, just in the
U.S. Yes.
And think of what it cost our
we're
children.
talking like
right?
it's past tense, and it's not. It's still going on. Like it's not past tense.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, in fact, I viewers had connected with me on Twitter that talk about still like there's mandates in Chicago and parts of like there's still things happening in the United States to hurt small businesses and mandates that are not affecting big businesses.
They still have medications. Like they're still working on medications for the next ninja round or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Right.
But so
this is not about the pharmaceuticals, though. What we're talking about is this pain point, right? That we have sort of learned that governments can tell us that this collective mindset is what we all need to get through something. And I think most of us feel like, no, you already got us on the pandemic. We did what we thought was right, and we got burned there. And now we're sort of taking on this pain for your war, and we don't want to do that again.
Well, Vladimir Putin went on to say that spoke specifically on the energy crisis issue. And he said this is all Western made. Like the more that you place these sanctions on Russia or Russian affiliates and Russia itself, you're crushing the Western energy sector. And so there are going to be people that are going to be sick and cold and not have access to heating oil throughout the year, thanks to these sanctions. Listen to what Putin had to say about Western sanctions.
Да, мы знаем, европейцы пытаются заместить российские энергоресурсы. Однако результат таких действий ожидаем. Это рост цен на газ на спотовом рынке и увеличение стоимости энергоресурсов для конечных потребителей, в том числе для домохозяйств. Все это еще раз показывает, что санкционные ограничения в отношении России гораздо больший ущерб наносят именно тем странам, которые их и вводят. Дальнейшее использование санкционной политики может привести к еще более тяжелым, без преувеличения, даже катастрофическим последствиям на мировом энергетическом рынке.
That's exactly what's happened, right?
Yes. I mean, look at the euro, right, which has been strong historically against the dollar. And now it almost has a cent-to-cent parity to the U.S. dollar, right?
Yeah, the euro this morning hit a 20-year low. 20-year low. So typically, historically, if you looked at the euro and you looked at, it was worth about, 1 euro was worth about, 80 cents of a dollar? Or
yes.
No, do I have that backwards?
No, you're about right. It's about $1 or 1.31 euro is, it
Okay.
costs, yes, sorry, I'm getting this backwards.
But yeah, so you could spend 80, yeah, anyway, the euro is way stronger, bottom line, until now. So now euro's at a 20-year low. Also, we saw that the Nord Stream 1, which is the oil pipeline flowing from Russia down into Germany, is going into a maintenance mode now for 10 days. While Russia, the question this afternoon is, will Russia even turn it back on? So there, and that could affect Germany tremendously.
I mean, this is incredible pandering, right? Like, we hate you. We don't agree we're going to punish you. Please turn that back on.
Well, it's hilarious. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. So earlier today, Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, came out and slammed Canada. So Canada was working on the oil turbine to fix for Nord Stream. Right, they were fixing it. So the maintenance was happening in Canada for this oil pipeline. Well, Vladimir Zelensky told Trudeau, like, by putting this pipeline back in place, Russia to Germany, that's a sign of weakness. You are weak if you do that. And Canada has said, well, this is an exemption to the sanctions. So it's like this one little carve out is an exemption. We're going to sanction you, but because it affects us, we're going to have this little carve-out sanction exemption where we will then be able to put this turbine back in place for Nord Stream 1, let the oil back to flow in Germany, and we're all good. The White House, though, came out specifically to talk about food prices, and tomorrow is the big day. So tomorrow, inflation numbers are coming out. We're going to see this new CPI number, the Consumer Price Index. We're going to see what this looks like for American consumers in the United States specifically. The White House is saying it's going to be bad. So they're giving us a preemptive attack here. They're letting us know that, stuff's about to hit the fan. Watch.
So on Wednesday, we will have new CPI inflation data, and we expect the headline number, which includes gas and food, to be highly elevated, mainly because gas prices were so elevated in June. Gas and food prices continue to be heavily impacted by the war in Ukraine.
So she had a big chart up there showing that some of the gas prices in the United States have started to moderate a bit, started to come down a little bit. That doesn't answer the fact, though, that why the hell is President Biden flying to Saudi Arabia to beg Saudis for more oil when we can't get drilling rights done in the United States? So actually, CNBC was specifically asked about that. CNBC specifically called out the BS on Putin's price hike with Hakeem Jeffries. He's a congressman who's been carrying the water for President Biden on this question. Like, why aren't we drilling more in the United States? Like, why aren't we expanding what we already have here? And instead, we're going to Saudi Arabia to beg them. We've also sold off our strategic oil reserves to China. Does that make any sense at all?
We sold 5 million barrels to China, to a company that Hunter Biden is actually part of, on the board of.
Yeah, so isn't that amazing? Like, and we're going to get to Hunter Biden in a minute, like those connections. But taking oil from our strategic reserves, selling it to China instead of using it in the United States.
And China has free access to Russian oil at a good price right now because they're not getting involved in the sanctions at all.
Right.
So, okay, does that make sense?
We'll take your oil. So CNBC pressed
Well,
Hakeem
that's why
Jeffries
I don't feel like it was a.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's why I don't feel like it really had anything to do with them actually needing oil when you get to that Hunter Biden story.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, let's see what Hakeem Jeffries has to say about this. He couldn't really answer this question, and surprisingly, CNBC actually pushed him on this. Listen.
In this country, we're still down from peak production. You don't think there's anything that you can do in Congress or to convince the Biden administration? You don't think there's any regulations that need to be eased? You don't think there's any offshore activity, ANWR, Keystone, trying to get rid of some of the red tape for refineries? You don't think there's anything, you don't take any responsibility? It's just all a Putin price hike. That's what I meant about breaking ranks. I think Ro Khanna finally did say, you're headed to Saudi Arabia, and domestically we're not producing as much as we could here.
Yeah, part of the challenge domestically in terms of production is that the oil and gas companies have refused to actually act on the permits to drill that they currently have available to them.
That's kind of a red herring, Congress. So there's leases, there's also just the overall pressure from ESG and the green lobby about whether an oil company is going to make plans 5 or 10 years down the road when, a large part of the population wants to put them out of business completely. So would you invest hard-earned capital on a 5-year project or a 10-year project now if you were a fossil fuel company?
Yeah, I mean, it's not clear to me that the oil and gas companies really care that much about the so-called green lobby. They have made clear in their earnings calls and in their representations to shareholders that they do care about the record profits that they've been making on the backs of increased gas prices for the American people.
Well, they're not making what they made 10 years ago. So their records based on.
So there you go. But again, more lies, more spin, right?
There's a lot to unpack there. I don't know exactly where I want to start.
Well, I mean, let's. Yeah, there's a lot there. But again, this Putin price hike has never caught on, right? It was from the moment they rolled this garbage out, it never caught on. And Americans saw right through it. And that probably is reflected in Joe Biden's poll numbers, which are at historic lows right now. The lowest.
Well, and it's like you can't, if
Carter.
You go to the graph, it's like people don't look at that graph that the prices were already like going like this before anything even happened in Ukraine. So it's like, you don't have to be a very intelligent person to look at a graph and see that that's a lie.
Right. Well, that's what Douglas Murray said. He's the author of the book, The War on the West. And he said that this Putin price hike story has been garbage from the beginning. Take a listen.
The whole issue of the last 6 months of the period since Putin invaded Ukraine is that the Biden administration has tried to put every single thing that has happened on President Putin, on the invasion. And the problem with this is several-fold. One of them is, of course, the American people don't buy it. We know that we had energy problems from the beginning of this administration. We know that President Biden shut down the pipeline. We know that he seems very keen to sort of go as green as possible in the U.S. while having to go around the world begging other people to provide us with oil.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going around the world, he's going to Saudi Arabia to beg for this. And
when Saudi Arabia has already said no, right? The president has made requests for Saudi Arabia to drill and export more. They've said no because they don't want to mess with their profit margin right now. They will not go through OPEC. And, at this point, Saudi Arabia is not taking the president's calls any longer. So he's going to show up there.
He's just going to fly in.
Yeah.
See how that works. It's like a scorned boyfriend or something.
I drove all night.
Right. I'm coming to your house,
to get
Crown
to
Prince.
You.
I'm going to pop up at...
Just don't ride your bicycle there.
Right.
I just don't know which house. I'm going to go to the one on the golf course or the one with the gold toilets over here. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. So again, Vladimir Putin calling it out, issuing a warning to the West, and he's absolutely right about it. And the liberal world order that is unfolding, you're expected to feel additional pain.
Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. We've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.